Top Svalbard Facts 1. Even Norwegians need to show their passport when traveling to Svalbard. That's because while Norway is part of the European Schengen area, the archipelago is not. Flights to Longyearbyen Airport leave from the non-Schengen zone of Oslo Airport, and everyone is required to show their passport regardless of nationality. 2. You must carry a gun outside the settlements. In a 2012 law, the governor of Svalbard requires anyone traveling outside the settlements to have the means to scare off a polar bear. This means carrying a firearm is mandatory, and items like flare guns are also highly recommended. It is prohibited to use a weapon within the settlements though. Several of the shops, restaurants and other public buildings have "No firearms permitted" signs on the main doors. 3. Polar bears live alongside people. The population changes seasonally, but there tends to be around 2,500 people living in Svalbard. Nearly everyone lives in the capital, Longyearbyen, but the real natives of these islands are the polar bears. Numbers have actually increased of late and are said to number around 3,000. However, this population calls a wide area its home, only part of which is Svalbard. The bears tend to stay clear of the settlements. However, bears do sometimes approach buildings due to desperate hunger. 4. 7 of Norway's 47 national parks are on Svalbard. Norway's national parks are created to ensure the preservation of nature for future generations. They are scattered all over Norway, with 85% of them being mountainous. 60% of Svalbard's land is protected. The 7 national parks are Furlandet, Indre Veidefjorden, Nordenskjold Land, Nordre Isfjorden, Nordvestspitsbergen, Sassenbundsø Land, and Storspitsbergen. The mountains, glaciers and islands of Nordvestspitsbergen National Park are home to historical monuments including former whaling stations and burial grounds. 5. Svalbard is classified as a desert. Because of its rock and ice, cold temperatures and low humidity, Svalbard falls into the northern part of our planet known as Arctic Desert. The area receives minimal precipitation, and the air is almost as dry as it would be in a hot desert. However, average temperatures on Svalbard have increased rapidly over the last few years and the climate is becoming wetter as a result. Earlier this year, Svalbard recorded its 100th consecutive month of above-average temperatures. 6. Less than 10% of the landmass has any vegetation. Much of the islands are covered with rock and ice, making it nearly impossible for vegetation to grow. See the photo just above to appreciate what this looks like. However, nearly impossible is not the same as impossible. The flora of Svalbard is surprisingly diverse, albeit in small areas. 7. You can see the northern lights during the day. It's well known that to see the northern lights you need darkness, which means traveling to the north of Norway in the winter. But Svalbard is so far north that the sun doesn't rise for 4 months during the winter. For almost 3 of those months, it's completely dark all day, making it possible to see the aurora borealis at any time of day. In October and February you can enjoy the stunning blue Arctic light during the daytime, and hunt the northern lights at night. 8. You are not allowed to die on Svalbard. Because of the permafrost on Svalbard, burial isn't possible as bodies simply won't decompose. However, there is a small cemetery, but it stopped accepting newcomers in the 1950s. One of the reasons was the fear that the preserved bodies may still contain traces of a flu virus that killed 7 miners decades before. 9. You cannot give birth on Svalbard. There's no such thing as the circle of life this far north. Just as you can't die, you can't be born on Svalbard either. When a pregnant woman has a few weeks remaining before her due date, she must travel to the mainland to give birth. However, there are plenty of children living in Longyearbyen. The town's main settlement is home to a kindergarten, a school and a youth club. 10. Anyone can live on Svalbard. Effective since 1925, the Svalbard Treaty that defines Norway's sovereignty over the archipelago has some very interesting conditions. The most curious is that the islands are an entirely visa-free zone. This gives citizens of all treaty signatories the right to live there. This goes along to explaining the very diverse nature of the people living in Longyearbyen. However, this right doesn't give a backdoor into Norway's immigration system. Years of living on Svalbard do not count towards the time required to apply for a permanent residence permit, for example.